I want you to just think for a second about the last gift you gave someone.
Yeah, or even, something simpler. Like think about that little lucky charm or that amulet you might have hanging on your backpack right now.
Exactly. Or like dangling from your rearview mirror, right? Because we tend to view these things as just polite social conventions, or maybe just a bit of harmless kind of feel-good superstition.
Right. I mean, it is so easy to just write them off as a nice gesture.
Totally.
It's a little token of affection that you pick up without putting much thought into the underlying mechanics of what you're actually doing.
What if that simple object, that coffee you bought a friend or that little souvenir charm, is actually the modern equivalent of an ancient peace treaty?
Which is wild to think about.
It is. Or like a biological survival tactic.
Mm-hmm.
Or, honestly, my personal favorite, a literal cosmic bribe.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Because we've been doing a deep dive into some incredible cross-disciplinary research lately, spanning evolutionary biology, anthropology, and religious philosophy. And it has completely ruined my ability to go to a birthday party normally.
I can imagine, yeah. It really changes your perspective.
It really does.
Right.
So our mission today is to basically fundamentally change how you look at wrapping paper and Lucky Charms. Because giving a present isn't just a polite accessory to human society. It's actually the biological, social, and spiritual engine that builds civilization.
It really is. And to really grasp the sheer scale of what gifting accomplishes, we kind of have to strip away all our modern assumptions.
Like about altruism and stuff.
Exactly. Altruism, generosity, all of that. We have to rewind the clock to our evolutionary ancestors and look at how giving evolved in the natural world.
Right.
Because out in the wild, giving a gift is an incredibly complex, really high-stakes signal. It's a literal transfer of energy used to prove your genetic fitness and, well, negotiate survival.
So, how do we even begin to draw a line from like biological survival instincts to handing someone a wrapped box? Where does that actually start?
Well, it starts with Charles Darwin, honestly, and his theory of sexual selection.
Okay, right.
Biologists observe this phenomenon that they call nuptial gifts, and this is where a male animal presents a physical item to a female to prove he has the resources and the fitness to be a good mate.
Wow, okay.
And a fantastic example of this, taking a really extreme form, is the male bowerbird.
Wait, are those the ones that build those crazy elaborate structures on the forest floor?
Yes, those exact ones. They build these intricate structures called bowers out of twigs. But the thing is, these aren't nests.
No, they're not.
No, they serve zero practical purpose for raising young. None at all.
So what are they for?
They are purely theatrical stages for showing off. Like, the male bird will spend an unbelievable amount of energy flying around, collecting these rare, shiny items.
Like what?
Oh, like blue feathers, specific berries, or even pieces of bright blue human-made plastic.
That is so weird.
Yeah, and he meticulously arranges them around the bower.
I think I've seen videos of this, actually. They are, like, obsessive about where every single little blue bottle cap goes.
Oh, absolutely. And the scientific term for that obsession is sensory niche construction.
Sensory niche construction. Okay.
Right. The male bird is actively manipulating the female's visual perspective.
Okay.
He builds this stage to completely control what she sees and what she hears when she steps inside to evaluate him.
Wow.
And you have to remember, in a highly dangerous, predator-filled environment, doing all of this is a massive expenditure of energy.
Yeah, because he's not hiding or hunting. He's just decorating.
Exactly. By arranging blue plastic for hours on end, he's proving he possesses a massive time and energy surplus.
Okay, I see.
He is basically broadcasting, look at how fit I am. I can afford to waste all this time and energy on interior decorating, and I'm still not getting eaten by predators.
That is an unbelievable flex. It's like proving you're rich by, I don't know, burning money in front of someone, right?
Basically, yeah.
But nature is rarely that straightforward, I feel like. If there's a system to prove your worth, there has to be a way to cheat that system.
Oh, absolutely. The natural world is full of scam artists.
I knew it.
So contrast the dedicated bowerbird with a specific species of spider, the Pissora mirabilis.
Okay.
In the spider world, mating is incredibly dangerous for males. The female is often larger, she's hungrier, and she's perfectly willing to eat the male before or after mating.
The eggs.
Yeah. So to prevent this, the male will present a nuptial gift, beautifully wrapped in bright white silk.
Oh, that's almost romantic.
Well, the female takes the silk package, she starts eating it, and the male uses that distraction to, mate.
Wait, let me guess. The box is empty.
It is worse than empty.
Oh, no.
Yeah, sometimes it's just a dried up leaf or like a piece of plant debris
Yeah.
or even an empty insect exoskeleton.
You're joking.
No, it is a completely dishonest signal. The male wraps literal garbage in beautiful silk solely to buy himself enough time to mate and escape before she realizes she's been tricked.
That is genuinely hilarious. It's literally an empty box wrapped in a nice bow.
It really is. And then you have creatures like harvestmen, which are similar to daddy longlegs,
Okay, yeah.
where the gift isn't an object, but actually a chemical secretion that the male offers the female.
A chemical gift.
Yeah, and researchers found that the specific chemical makeup of this gift dictates whether the mating interaction is peaceful or like violently antagonistic.
Wow.
Males who approached peacefully had secretions containing, I think it was 19% more essential amino acids than the aggressive males. So the literal chemistry of the gift dictates the entire social dynamic of the encounter.
That's crazy. So, millions of years before humans invented currency or, drafted legal contracts, the physical gift was already the foundational currency of the planet.
Exactly.
So how does this biological instinct level up? Because obviously you and I aren't handing each other dead leaves or secreting chemicals.
Thank goodness. Well, as we move up the evolutionary ladder to mammals, and specifically our primate cousins, the nature of the gift transforms.
Okay, how so?
It moves away from finding a shiny object or, making a chemical, and it turns into something far more demanding, which is time and labor.
Oh, interesting.
Specifically, social grooming.
You mean like chimpanzees sitting around picking bugs and dirt out of each other's hair? Because I always assumed that was just like basic hygiene.
Most people do, but it goes far beyond hygiene. When a primate turns its back to another primate to be groomed, it's making itself completely physically vulnerable.
Oh, right, because they can't see what's happening.
Exactly. That is the ultimate trust transaction. And neurologically, the slow, gentle, repetitive touching triggers massive releases of endorphins and oxytocin in both of their brains.
Really? In both of them?
Yes.
Yeah.
It feels good, it mildly numbs pain, and it chemically reinforces an incredibly powerful alliance. They are trading their time and labor to build a social safety net.
But there has to be a ceiling to that, right? I mean, you can only physically pick bugs out of so many chimpanzees' hair in one afternoon.
You're absolutely right, and the anthropologist Robin Dunbar studied this limitation deeply. He pointed out a concept known as the bonding gap.
The bonding gap.
Right. Grooming is strictly a one-on-one activity. But as our early hominid ancestors faced, shifting ecological pressures, they needed to form larger and larger groups to survive predators and to hunt effectively.
Which makes sense.
But they hit a mathematical wall. There simply were not enough hours in the day to physically groom every single individual you needed in your alliance. If you spend all day grooming, you starve.
Right. Hearing you describe that physical bottleneck, it sounds to me like laughter is essentially Wi-Fi grooming.
Oh, that is a brilliant way to conceptualize it, yes.
Right.
Yeah, around 2.5 million years ago, our ancestors evolved laughter, and it functions as a touchless software update for the primate brain.
I love that. A touchless software update.
It triggers the exact same endorphin and oxytocin systems as physical grooming, but it completely shatters that one-on-one bottleneck.
Because everyone can hear it at once.
Exactly. You can stand in a clearing, perform a gesture, or make a sound, and you're essentially rooming 20 people simultaneously. You're giving a large group the gift of your energy and attention, establishing a massive network of trust without ever even touching them.
So laughter scales up the tribe. But, eventually those bigger tribes are going to wander over a hill and bump into completely different tribes.
Yes, inevitably.
And you can't just, laugh your way out of a territorial dispute over a watering hole with 50 strangers who don't know you.
Yeah.
You need a system more binding than a joke to prevent a massacre, right?
Which brings us to the sociological engine of human history, the obligation of the physical gift.
Okay, let's get into this.
So in 1925, the French sociologist Marcel Mauss published this really groundbreaking study called The Gift.
Right. This is a huge deal in anthropology.
It really is. He analyzed indigenous societies across the globe and realized that before currency or formal laws existed, gifting was not some casual side activity. It was the absolute backbone of all social order. And Mauss identified 3 unbreakable rules that governed these early societies: the obligation to give, the obligation to receive, and the obligation to repay.
And the stakes for those rules were incredibly high, weren't they? Like, if someone offered your tribe a gift and you rejected it, that wasn't just considered rude, that was a literal declaration of war.
Exactly.
And if you accepted it but failed to repay it later, you lost your social standing, your honor, or you could literally be enslaved to the person you owed.
Yes. To understand why the pressure was so intense, we have to look at the mechanism driving it. Mao drew heavily on the Maori people of New Zealand and their concept of the how.
The how.
H-A-U. The how is the spiritual essence, the living life force of the giver that gets permanently embedded into the physical object they are giving.
So the object stops being just an inert piece of wood or a shell. It basically becomes alive.
It does. It retains a connection to its origin. The object actively wants to return to its original owner. So when you accept a gift from a neighboring tribe, you are literally taking in a piece of their soul, and that creates an immense, almost supernatural psychological weight.
I can imagine.
It's a pressure that sits on you until you repay them to balance the scales. This constant, never-ending cycle of debt and repayment acts like a giant loom, basically weaving completely independent people into a single, cohesive society.
You know, that perfectly explains why it feels so intensely uncomfortable when, like, a casual acquaintance gives you a birthday present that is way too expensive.
Oh, yes.
Your brain instantly panics because you feel the weight of the hull. You feel that invisible debt crushing you.
Exactly. And that invisible debt is exactly what caught the attention of philosophers later on. Jacques Derrida looked at this entire system and argued that the idea of a pure gift,
Meaning what?
a gift given purely out of love with zero expectation of return. He argued that it is a structural paradox. He actually called it counterfeit money.
Hold on, that feels incredibly cynical.
It does.
Like, if I randomly buy my mom a bouquet of flowers just to make her smile,
Yeah.
Derrida is saying, I'm secretly opening a line of credit. Like, is a truly selfless act of generosity mathematically impossible to him?
In a structural sense, Derrida would say yes. His argument is that the very second you recognize you are giving a gift, or the second the receiver realizes they are getting one, an invisible ledger opens in the human mind.
Even with family.
Even with family. Because even gratitude itself is a form of debt. You gave flowers, and in return, you received the warm feeling of being a good child and her gratitude.
Oh, I see.
For a gift to be truly pure and escape this ledger, Derrida argued, it would have to be completely unrecognized by both the giver and the receiver, which is impossible.
Right.
So in the real world, gifts are always tangled up in power dynamics, debts, and expectations of a return.
Well, if Derrida sees gifting as an invisible trap of debt, there's also Georges Bataille, right? Who sees it as more of a pressure valve.
Yes, Bataille's perspective is fascinating.
Yeah. Because in his book, The Accursed Share, Bataille argued that human societies constantly generate excess energy and wealth. And if we don't intentionally burn off that excess through grand, lavish gifting, it boils over into catastrophic violence.
Exactly. We see both of those philosophies play out perfectly in historical tribal mechanics. Take the Kula Ring, which was studied by the anthropologist Bronislaw Malinowski.
Okay, what's that?
In the Pacific Islands, tribesmen would risk their lives sailing across incredibly dangerous stretches of ocean just to exchange red shell necklaces and white shell armbands.
And to be clear to you listening, these shells had zero practical use. You can't eat them, you can't use them to build a boat. They're completely useless objects.
Their uselessness is the entire point. Whoever held them gained a massive prestige. But you were never the owner. You were merely a temporary steward.
Oh, so you had to give them away again.
Yes. You were obligated to sail to the next island and pass the shells on. This constant, exhausting circulation of useless but highly valued items created a massive cross-oceanic peace network.
That's incredible.
It really is. It kept thousands of potentially hostile people allied through the shared obligation of the how.
But then you contrast that collaborative peace network with something like the potlatch ceremonies of the Pacific Northwest and North America.
Yeah.
This is where gifting became like a weaponized display of dominance.
Weaponized is the perfect word for it.
Yeah, tribal chiefs would host these massive feasts and aggressively give away mountains of wealth, like furs, food, copper shields, or they would literally just destroy it, burn it in a giant fire right in front of rival chiefs.
Right, and it matches Bataille's idea of burning off excess energy perfectly, but used offensively.
Yeah.
But destroying their own wealth, a chief was broadcasting, look, I am so powerful and resource-rich that I can literally burn my own house down.
What a move.
And now you owe me. And if your tribe cannot match this destruction, you are socially crushed. The anthropologist Marshall Solins later categorized all these human interactions into three modes of reciprocity.
What are they?
Generalized reciprocity is for close family, where you give without tracking the debt. Balanced reciprocity is for allies, like the Kula Ring, where you expect an equal return eventually. And negative reciprocity is for strangers or enemies, where you use gifts, like in the potlatch, to gain dominance.
Okay, so we figured out how to use the weight of a gift to stop our neighbors from attacking us. But as these tribes settled down and grew into these massive agricultural empires, the threats changed.
They absolutely did.
Like, you can't hand a shell necklace to a thunderstorm. You can't negotiate a peace treaty with a devastating drought or a plague of locusts. So, to regain control of their survival, humanity took this horizontal gift economy and rotated it vertically, straight up toward the gods.
This transition brings us to the profound mechanics of ancient sacrifice, and we really have to look past our modern, sanitized assumptions about this.
What do you mean?
Well, the sociologists Henri Hubert and Marcel Mauss built the foundational model of how this worked. A true sacrifice isn't just dropping some fruit on an altar. It requires the concept of ritual destruction.
And to understand that destruction, we have to look at how early societies viewed the universe. They divided reality into two distinct realms, right?
Yes.
The profane world, which is our mundane, everyday human life, and the sacred world, which is the untouchable divine realm of the gods.
And the anthropologist Claude Lévi-Strauss provided a brilliant perspective on how humans tried to bridge those two worlds. He argued that simply leaving an item on an altar, it just leaves it in the profane world.
Because it's still just sitting there.
Exactly. But by destroying the item, by slaughtering the animal or burning the harvest, you permanently remove it from human use. That irreversible act of destruction in the profane world is actually designed to force a reaction in the sacred world.
And Hubert and Mauss outlined the exact cast of characters required for this to work, didn't they?
They did. It's a very specific structure.
Right, so first you have the sacrifier, spelled with an I, who is the king or the community actually sponsoring the event.
Correct.
Then you have the sacrificer, with an E, that's the priest acting as the broker.
Yes, the middleman.
Right. Then you have the victim, which is the animal or the offering acting as the physical buffer. And finally, the destruction, which is the actual burning or killing that transfers the property.
Exactly. And by transferring that massive amount of wealth to the divine realm, these early empires were attempting something incredibly audacious.
Oh, totally.
They were taking Mauss's three social obligations, give, receive, repay, and applying them to the universe itself.
So ancient kings were essentially trying to give the universe a massive cosmic guilt trip.
That's one way to look at it, yeah.
Like, they were buying the gods an unbelievably expensive dinner so the gods would feel awkward if they didn't send rain the next week.
That is precisely the psychological strategy. If a kingdom burns 100 of its best oxen, the god is now a debtor.
Wow.
The god is trapped by the how of the sacrifice and literally owes the kingdom good weather and stability.
But there was a major philosophical debate about who was actually getting the better deal in this transaction, wasn't there?
Yes, between Emile Durkheim and Marcel Mauss.
Right, because Durkheim argued that humans were getting a spectacular bargain. The gods provide the entire world, the sun, the rain, the soil, and humans just give back a tiny fraction of a harvest as a symbolic thank you.
Right. But Mauss argued the exact opposite.
How so?
Mauss recognized the terror underlying these rituals. The gods gave humans life itself. That creates a crushing, unbearable, infinite debt.
Oh, man.
Humans felt so pressured to repay this infinite gift that it led to the most extreme forms of the ritual, like human sacrifice or individuals giving up their entire lives to enter a secluded religious order.
So they were trying to pay down an unpayable debt.
Precisely.
This cycle of blood debt and burning offerings, it dominated human history for millennia. What finally broke the wheel?
A massive philosophical and theological shift occurred. The sociologist Talcott Parsons pointed out how the rise of Christianity, for example, completely inverted this dynamic.
Oh, through the concept of kenosis, right?
Yes, kenosis. It's the idea of divine self-emptying. So instead of humans constantly sending destroyed wealth up to appease an angry divine realm, the divine sent the ultimate gift down to humanity.
So by the divine acting as the ultimate sacrifice, it acted as the sacrifice of sacrifice itself.
Exactly. It paid the infinite debt. By giving that final massive gift downwards, the theological framework effectively canceled the requirement for humans to keep slaughtering animals and burning their wealth just to keep the cosmos turning.
That is a massive shift.
Yeah.
because we definitely don't burn herds of oxen in the town square anymore to control the weather.
No, thankfully we do not.
But let's look at the reality of modern life. It is chaotic, it is atomized, and it is deeply anxious.
Yeah.
We still have the exact same primate brains that our ancestors had.
You do?
We still desperately crave that gift-based connection to the universe just to feel safe. So the massive, bloody public sacrifice basically shrank down. It became the modern personalized lucky charm or amulet.
Exactly. We see a complete directional flip in how humans interact with the sacred. In the ancient world, massive amounts of community wealth moved up to the gods. Today, the modern individual seeks to receive a tiny physical token moving down from the divine right into their pocket.
The research highlights a beautiful example of this at the Baekeng Kaioshin Temple in Taiwan. Millions of visitors go there every year to acquire small amulets or incense pouches.
Yes, it's a very famous site.
But the magic isn't in just like buying it at a gift shop. There's a deeply specific tactile ritual you actually have to perform.
What's it?
You take the pouch, you hold the bag open, and you pass it clockwise over the temple's main incense burner.
Wow. That act of passing it through the thick smoke while holding it open is everything. It is a literal catching of the divine energy.
Right.
In Massian terms, you are catching the gods how? It is a direct physical handover of spiritual power into your personal possession.
I love the mechanics of this.
Yeah.
Because if you own one of these items, a temple pouch, a crystal, a patron saint medal, it's not just some silly superstition.
Not at all.
Think of it as a divine read receipt. It is a physical, tactile notification that the universe has seen your message, acknowledges your existence, and is basically watching out for you.
And modern psychology completely validates this need. The psychoanalyst Donald Winnicott famously studied what he called transitional objects.
Like a baby's security blanket.
Exactly like that. That blanket helps a child transition from total dependence on their mother to facing the vast, frightening outside world. It provides a physical anchor for their anxiety.
That makes total sense.
So for adults navigating the overwhelming stress of a disconnected modern world, amulets and charms function in the exact same way. They are transitional objects that prove you're connected to something larger than yourself.
It also reframed how we should look at the people who create these objects.
Yeah.
Like the local artisans carving peachwood, the temple operators, the designers pressing gold foil. They aren't just souvenir vendors. They're actually acting as modern-day priests.
They really are. They are the new sacrificers from Hubert and Mauss's model. They stand on the boundary between the sacred and the profane worlds, translating abstract cultural protection into physical materials.
Right.
And by purchasing the item, the modern consumer makes a mild economic sacrifice, spending their hard-earned money to receive this divine gift. It satisfies that ancient primal need for cosmic connection without requiring an irreversible destruction of property.
Wow. So just tracing this massive journey from the very beginning. We started with the male bowerbird meticulously arranging shiny blue plastic to prove his survival fitness.
We did.
Then we watched early primates trade hours of vulnerable grooming to build trust and saw how humans evolved laughter to expand that trust across a whole tribe.
Right.
We saw tribal chiefs trading useless shells across dangerous oceans to weave a peace treaty, and ancient kings burning entire herds of animals to guilt-trip the cosmos.
And finally,
We arrive at the quiet comfort of a lucky charm hanging from your rearview mirror.
across millions of years, multiple species, and vastly different civilizations, the underlying mechanism remains completely identical. We are all just creatures seeking to confirm our existence, build our alliances, and ensure our safety through the heavy, inescapable obligation of giving and receiving gifts. It is the invisible thread that holds the world together.
It really makes you appreciate the gravity of just handing someone a birthday present,
It really does.
But it leaves me with one final, deeply provocative thought for you to ponder. We just spent this entire deep dive learning how millions of years of evolution, peace treaties, and cosmic contracts relied entirely on the physical weight, the effort, and the sensory reality of a gift, the crushing, beautiful weight of the high.
Yeah.
So what happens to our social fabric now in the digital age? When a gift becomes a frictionless, weightless digital emoji, or an automated e-gift card that takes literally zero effort to send and zero effort to receive, do we lose that vital, heavy sense of obligation that built human civilization in the first place?
That is a fascinating question.
Next time you tap your screen to send a digital gift, just ask yourself, where did the health juke go?